Hi, everybody. This is Chalice. I hope you're having a great day. I am going to be sharing with you a little mini lesson on one of the topics, a very important topic this week, which is the DoDEA instructional framework that we call 20-60-20. The 20-60-20 has to do with the amount of time in the lesson that you spend on these different components of a lesson. Before we go through what each one of those components entail, I would like to share with you a little bit about why the 20-60-20 is important. And then, as I said, we'll move directly into a deeper dive into each one of those three components. So the 20-60-20 is a structure or framework for planning and implementing lessons. Research tells us that there are very specific teacher moves, strategies, and activities that can have a profound impact on student learning. The 20-60-20 is important because it represents a synthesis of this research. We might do some of these things that we're going to talk about intuitively, but the real impact on learning for students occurs when we intentionally design learning with this framework in mind. This is what I'm showing you on the screen right now is a graphic with some explanation around the outside edges for each of the three areas of the 20-60-20. I would like to take us to a different page, on our, forgive me, I'm going to switch really fast. I'm going to take us to our slideshow first, just to show you that this slide has some extra resources for us on the 20-60-20, but to actually do the talking through the different sections, I'm going to go here because I think this is a sample planning tool that you have access to, and I think it makes it a little bit easier to follow along. So we're going to start with the first 20, or the opener. And the opener is called 20 because it can be up to 20% of the total lesson time. So if your lesson is 60 minutes long, your opener should be no more than 12 minutes long. It would be great if it was a little bit less, but you do need to be careful to include all of these pieces into that opener. That's the important part. So let's talk about what the different pieces are. There are three really big things. The first is sharing the learning target. The learning target has to be shared with students so that they understand the purpose of the lesson and what we expect them to learn. And of course, this is only going to work if we share the learning target in student-friendly language. The second piece is that we have to do something around vocabulary, either introducing new vocabulary or giving kids or students a chance to kind of refresh their memory or refine their understanding of vocabulary that they already have stable in a stable way or maybe tentatively. So, why is this important? Well, that is simple because we think in words. Students simply cannot think deeply about and understand a concept without having language to describe it. So, doing something around vocabulary is really critical. The next piece is also important, and that is connecting new learning to previous knowledge and learning. We call this activating and building background knowledge. One of the articles in the resources for this module says it best. Not activating and building knowledge is like throwing a basketball to a player who has no experience with basketball, and then expecting him to be able to play basketball like a professional. Background knowledge is essential to connecting and understanding big ideas. The fourth bullet here says to use formative assessment to measure what is coming, to measure what students already know and can do around the topic of the day. This is not an absolutely mandatory piece of the opener in terms of being true to what the research tells us. You may already have information based on something that the students did the day before, or maybe this is completely new learning that you want to start everyone off with the opener and move into some work sessions that actually give you that information. So you may not choose to use a formative assessment during the opener, but if you do, there are very quick and easy to use formative assessments, for example, entrance tickets and things like that that don't take very long. I'm going to very quickly move us now into the second section, which is called the work session. The work session can be no longer than 60% of the total lesson time when we're using this model. What that means, back to our 60-minute example, is that the work session could be about 36 minutes or more if you make the opening and closing a little bit smaller. In the work session, you are going to very intentionally choose your learning activities or learning experiences to match your learning target. If your learning target is based on a skill, like learning how to measure or use an open number line, then you would follow a gradual release model of teacher modeling, guided practice, group practice, independent practice. If you are working on understanding and application of content, such as being able to construct an argument in literacy or math, or understand division as an unknown factor problem, that's going to require a different sort of lesson that will involve a rich task, working in groups, and some intentionally planned discourse. So this is really important to learning, to match your learning experience you're offering kids back to the learning target in terms of the level of learning that needs to take place. The final component is the closing. The closing is, once again, 20%. In our 60-minute lesson, it would be no more than 12 minutes. The closing is extremely critical, and it is the piece that people tend to leave out most often. I think that we leave it out. I'm included in this because I let the work session stretch over a little bit too far and I run out of time. So one thing that can help us is having some routines around this that we do regularly, and that helps keep us on track. So for example, if I ask students every day to write in a journal or an exit ticket or a sticky note kind of summarizer, then it's just a routine that we are always going to do. The other piece that I might build in as a routine is having kids reflect on their own learning. How did they do on the learning of the day? What did they do when they had a place where they struggled? Or what kinds of strategies did they use to help themselves get through their struggles? So all of these things are really important because they show kids how they are growing and changing and learning. And we know from the motivational framework that that is imperative in motivation and engagement. It also gives us a great opportunity to do some work with growth mindset around the self-reflective practices, and once again, kids seeing ways that they're successful. So that was the 20-60-20 in a nutshell. And I have this planning document for you to look at in the resources for the module, but really this is just a sample that I've used. We want you to create your own template based on these ideas, as well as the things that you're going to add that are really important to you from the foundational pieces of the course. I hope, however, that you noticed as I discussed the components of the 20-60-20 that I actually talked about pieces of the motivational framework in each one of the three areas of this 20-60-20, as well as growth mindset. And of course, the 4Cs are embedded as well. So it doesn't mean that you need a whole new lesson plan. What you need is to be really intentional about what your focus is. So that's it. Thank you very much, and I can't wait to see your lesson planning templates that you create.